Hello dear friends, I was just sorting through something in my cupboard and I found all these scraps in a bag. I just love fabrics, and when I've got nice little bits and pieces of colour like this, I'm often tempted to just stitch them together to make a new piece of fabric, which if you are a quilter is now a mile a minute, and you can make lovely blocks of quilting with that. But today I've got little pieces that are too small to do anything with, so I thought, why not make some cards? So let me show you what we're going to do. I have got a various selection here. They, as you can see, all irregular shapes and sizes. And I'm going to take these now and glue them down onto a piece of A4 paper. And really not too fussed whether they are in any particular sequence. I'm not going to be worrying about what shapes they are. I'm just going to fill my page with color. Now, one thing that you will need to know is that when you are laying down your strips of fabric, the first row is easy to do, but the second row you're actually wanting just to overlap the glue ever so slightly so that everything is well secured. We will be doing a little bit of stitching, but that will come a little bit later. Oh, there's a seam. I definitely don't want a seam. This piece of fabric, you know, as they all do, have a story. This was some of the edging of a quilt that I made for my granddaughter, and yeah, really delighted with it. Oh, I can't have put much glue there, could I? Right, so you want to make sure that it does stick down nicely. Don't use a wet glue, because you'll find that that actually seeps through the fabric and can actually look unpleasant. Whatever hangs over the edge you can just snip off like that. Then I'm going to choose the next color. Let's try a bit of this yellow. Yellow and purple work well together, complementary colors, and they always pop nicely, so that's great. And then I think I'll have a little bit of maybe some of the black. Yeah, if you've got pieces of fabric, most of them do have stories. I was given a lovely bag of offcuts by a lady at my quilting guild, and I had loads of fun with that. Right, where I've got a shape that's totally irregular like that, I think I'm just going to trim it so that I've got two sort of pieces that are vaguely a shape, rather than end up with something that's too difficult to match up. And I'm going to continue like this until I've actually finished the whole page. Here's a nice bit of pink. Maybe I'll put that here next to the purple. That could be fun. Are you a quilter at all? Do you like to do patchwork and stuff? Do you have a love of fabrics? I've got one particular brand of fabric from South Africa which is called Shweshwe, and I just love that. And we used to take a friend of mine, an old lady who made these beautiful smock dresses. We used to go there to get her supplies, and both of us just loved the Shweshwe fabric, and we would stand in the door of the fabric shop and just really stand and smell it, because this fabric has, I don't know what it is, it's either a chemical or maybe a starch in it that is just, it has the most beautiful smell and just evokes happy memories. So she and I had the same sort of feeling about it, and we would go and stand at the fabric shop and just enjoy the smell before we walked in. The staff there actually thought we were quite bonkers, which I'm sure we were, but nevertheless it was really just a wonderful shop, and you could always get what you wanted, and she made the most gorgeous dresses. Right, so you can see this is a real hodgepodge of pieces. It's going to be like a mini little patchwork, and we will secure all these little pieces down with a bit of stitching once we've filled up the sheet. So let me just continue. I'll speed up the process now so that you're not too bored. Let's press on with making our birthday cards. The glue's dried on my fabric, and I'm now going to flip this over, and I think what I'm primarily going to do with this is to actually just do a couple of presents and some candles. Now if I wanted to have long thin candles this way, then I'd get all the variety of colors on one candle. If I did it this way, then I'll just get strips of candles. So I'm going to go across the width, and I'm going to do some candles that are probably 2 centimeters tall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll probably get a few out of this. I'm thinking maybe divide this into thirds. So these are 2 centimeters, so the candles aren't too thick. I'm going to draw a line here. And don't worry if things aren't exactly the same size. You could have candles of varying heights if you wished. Right, so my width here is 21 centimeters. Let's just make this nice and neat. Let's do some at 7. I'm just trying to think. I'll make some a bit longer maybe. No, let's stick with 7 here for this one. We can do some longer ones in a minute. So each block is 5 candles, that's 15, so you got to remember you want 15 flames. And then I might just do 2 centimeters. Let's see how these work out. And half of this is 10.5. No, that's too tall, because your card is actually going to be a quarter of this page. So we could do maybe 8 centimeters and 16 and use the bottom as a present. Let's do that. So I'll just do a couple of these. Sorry, I'm thinking as I'm going. Let's do 2, just so that I've got a bit of height. Then I want a couple of presents, so I'll probably make those about 6 centimeters. Let's see how this works out. This length here is 15.5 centimeters. So if I divide that 14, so let's do 8, and then the other one will be just 7 and a bit. That's okay. And this one was 6. Let's do one a little bit smaller, 5. And then this will work out so that that's 5, 5 and a little bit more than 5. 5, 10, 5, 10. There we go. Right, so we've got our 15 candles plus another 6. So that's 21. So we're going to need 21 little flames. So we're just going to draw those. They're just like a leaf shape. That's 13, 14, 15, 16. I'm just going to go to the end of the row in case I don't like one or two of them, and then I've got a few options. There we go. So if we draw a line underneath that, we won't waste the rest of the piece of patchwork paper we've got, and I'm just going to divide that into a couple of blocks. So the next thing that we're going to need to do is to be able to stitch around each of these. So you're going to stitch on the inside of every single line, so that when you cut, you're going to cut on the red line and your fabric will remain intact on your card. You don't want any little tiny pieces where the edges start lifting, or you've got maybe a frayed edge or something hasn't been glued down. This will be your security for all of those little loose edges, cut edges, anything that might happen. Right, so you're going to go all the way around the outside of your piece of paper on all sides, and then on either side of every single red line. And I know it seems like a lot, but when you come to do your designs, you're not going to have to do these dotted lines as I'm doing. This is just to show you where you're needing to stitch. You might be deciding that you want to use white cotton, you might use black cotton, you could use just a running stitch, you could use a fancy embroidery stitch, you could use free motion quilting. The sky's the limit. So you're going to stitch all the way around every single one of these lines, and including your flames. The flames, I'm more inclined to just say over the whole piece of this fabric, just do some random quilting and then cut them out. That would probably be the easiest way of doing those tiny little bits, but that's entirely up to you. Now I'm going to go away and stitch along all of these dotted lines, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what I've done, and we can progress to the next step. I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be quite exciting to see the patterns. It's like the big reveal. Okay, see you in a bit. Here's a joyful piece of fabric that's been stitched. Remember that this is the one that we were going to do the patchwork birthday cards, using some of these as presents, some of these as candles with a little flame, and we've just done the templates on the back and used the stitching. So it's been well and truly stitched. All the loose edges have been secured down nicely, and so now I'm going to just start to cut them apart. I'm going to cut between the lines. Remember I said it's like a tram line, so between the stitching on the red line is where I'm going to cut. These are going to be my candles, so I'm going to set those aside, and I'll show you here what I did with the flame part of the candle, because when I came to stitch this, it was obviously very tiny to be able to stitch with inside that framework. So what I have done here is to just use this wavy pattern stitch to stitch up and down on some of them so that I can see what it's going to look like. If I'm happy with that, I'll carry on with the rest of them later on. And then these little squares that are left over are going to be presents. So I'm going to just cut again on the red lines, that's between the rows of stitching. All the way through. Each one is just like a surprise because they're all different. I just love that. So they're all the presents that we'll be able to use maybe in different combinations. Those are the flames for the candles. Let's cut the candles themselves out now. So again, cutting on the red lines. Kept the candles quite thin so that I could maybe put more than one on a piece of card. And I have just followed the width of the paper to get my sizes. So this will be a very short little candle. But I suppose it could also be the top of a box. Could do it like that as well. So potentially candles or the top of a box. These ones will definitely be candles. And then I've got some longer ones as well that I'm going to be doing. So let's do these. I think I'll cut them through this middle. As long as you've actually made sure that you've caught all the raw edges of your fabric just with stitching and round the edges, you should be quite safe with this. Because we are not going to be using these as tags, we're going to be sticking this down onto a birthday card. We don't need to cover the back because we won't need any space to write, and this will go straight down onto the card itself. Rather lovely and bright. And I've kept sort of the colours quite nice and bright and fun and funky so that I could use them either for a male or a female card, and young or old. There we go. If you wanted to, you could round the tops of the candles off just with your scissors. And by that I mean if, say this was to be the top, I'll use this side here, you could just nip away at the edge here just to give it a bit more shape. I wouldn't do that at the bottom as well, but just at the top you could. And so if that's the start of the candle, let me just trim the excess away at the bottom here, like that. Then if we are looking at some of these little flame shapes, we were to cut them out. Like that. Then we've got a nice selection of different colors. So I'm just going to continue cutting out the flames. They're a bit boring for you to watch. And then when I come to ready to assemble these onto a card, I'll come back to you. Here are all the pieces that have been cut out. So you'll see that I've got quite a few different blocks which I could use for presents, and quite a selection of different colors for the candles. And here are my selection of frames. Where you have cut and you've got pieces of fabric that are overlapping like this, just take a nice sharp pair of fabric scissors and turn your design over so that you can see where your paper is, oopsie, and just cut the excess off. You will find that you've got a few little fluffy edges on some of the pieces, and that's just going to be the way it is because you are dealing with unedged pieces of fabric, so you will have some of these little tufty edges. But where possible, trim away all the things that might stand up, and then you're ready to go on to actually make the next stage where you're actually putting the card together. I selected this nice square of patchwork fabric to use as a present, and I've cut two different lengths of ribbon, one slightly shorter than the other, just to wrap around the present. Now, in order to secure this so that it looks as though the present has been tied, I'm not actually going to put glue on the ribbon because my experience is that it tends to seep forward. So I've actually put some double-sided tape on the back of this, and provided you've actually secured your corners nicely, the tape peels away really easily. If your tape is still lifting, then just rub it down against a hard surface just to get the corners wedged into place. And I'm just going to use the turnover by turning the ribbon onto the double-sided tape as a means to secure it. So this is slightly longer than this. I'm going to use my shorter piece and just eyeball this, maybe just turn it over gently and press it onto the double-sided tape at the back, and that will hold that securely. And I'm going to do the same here, trying if I can to get this ribbon to lie straight. There we go. And I don't mind that it looks slightly flexible on the top, because when you tie a present it naturally does that. Then the second piece is going to go across the top, and you can decide where you want to put it. I'm going to put mine slightly higher than the center line. Just tuck that in over that side and that onto that side. Right, so now we've got our present secured. I've chosen a little bow that I'm actually going to be using to go on top of the present, and rather than using wet glue which seeps through the ribbon, I've put some double-sided tape onto the tail part of the bow, because that will hold it flat and this will be slightly raised. And then for the card, I've got two layers. I've got a piece of yellow card and some white, and I've simply taken one of these rainbow ink pads and used the dark one just to swipe along the edges like that, just to give it a little bit of color. I'm afraid I'm not a person who likes these like very precise, pristine cards, I like things to look a little bit handmade. So I'm now going to remove the double-sided tape, which is my method of securing this down. You could use a Pritt glue stick, or you could actually use a wet glue stick, whatever is your preferred glue of choice. And I'm just going to use this to secure it onto the background for the card. And then the rest is pretty easy. So you'll see by doing this method, you'll be able to get quite a lot of cards made, and that once you've actually done the patchwork side of things, the assembling of the cards is actually really, really easy. Now I've got to make a decision as to where I would like to place my patchwork present. So I think I'm going to place it slightly up off the center like that, because I've got a happy birthday that I want to put underneath. And then I'm going to make sure that I really rub these ends of the double-sided tape down. No, it's not sticking. Oh, I hope it does. Normally does. Let's see. No, funny, it doesn't. It's interesting. It doesn't want to actually stick to this ribbon, and I was convinced it would do that. Alright, so then we go to plan B, and we'll just take a little bit of wet glue, and let me just see where my glue is. There we go. So this is just a craft glue, or you could use a fabric glue, and you don't want to put too much on. You just simply want to have a dot or two at the back, just so that this will bond. I try and do it over the area where the knot is, so that it's not visible. So I'm going to pop that down there, so it's like it's on the top of the present. You could go with something bigger if you wanted to. That's entirely your choice, and the card makers out there are probably screaming at me, but this is not my forte. The patchwork side is. Anyway, now I've got some of these sentiments, happy birthdays, and I'm just going to peel these off and place them on the card. And this is very easy. You can buy most of these stick-on sticker things at either Poundland, or you can buy them at some of the toy stores, W.H. Smith, or in your home country, wherever you might live in the world. Probably your local craft shop would also have some of these as well. So just wanting to try and make sure it goes as straight as possible. Not quite straight, but nevertheless, there we go. So there's one little card, so that's a happy birthday. And then the second one that we're going to be making is the candle. And I have already stuck down the white onto the background. You'll notice that I haven't inked up the edges. I've chosen 3 sizes of candles, and again I'm going to just place them slightly up from the center line, just so that I can put in some words underneath. So I'm going to first stick the little flames, because that will help me remember where my candles are going to go. Gosh, we've had such extreme weathers here at the moment. Yesterday was so hot that while I was working outside, because I do work outside for those of you that are new to my channel, it was so hot that perspiration was literally, and I mean literally, running down all our foreheads all day. And today we started off the day being really cool with rain, which was extremely welcome, but now it's got hot and humid again. It's just 3 seasons in a day. It's really weird. Anyway, good for the gardens to have the water. This one's not playing ball. Let me try this inside edge. I know that back home in South Africa, I was chatting to my friend Grace this morning, and she just said it is so cold there. They just don't know what to do with themselves, because it doesn't seem to matter how much clothing you have on or how much heating you've got on. It's still freezing. And we're in Cape Town, surrounded by mountains that get a lot of snow in winter. I mean, quite a, really a lot. And then the northwest, sorry, I'm the wrong continent. The southwesterly winds blow in from the Antarctic, and they just blow all that cold air straight off the mountain into your homes. And yeah, we have quite a lot of lashing rain, so it's really extreme. We get lots of rain here in the UK as well, but it's a different kind of rain. It doesn't seem to come down in sheets for long periods of time, which is my experience at back home, is that it would come down and absolute sheets. I could fill a 20-litre bucket of water in like 2 or 3 minutes. Whereas here things will get very, very wet, but it tends to be more of a soaking rain. Right, so we're just busy with the last one here. Sorry, I didn't mean to bump the camera. And I hope that you've enjoyed this video. It's lovely for mass making cards. It's lovely to have some of these things just away in a drawer so that if you need a card in a hurry, you can quickly put one together. And I love the way that they are so colourful. So personally, I'm going to just leave this plain, but if you wished, you could actually add a sentiment at the bottom as well. So they're the 2 cards made with our patchwork, just using scraps from your stash. Thank you for joining me. Please consider subscribing to my channel, give me a thumbs up, share the video, do all of those things. It really helps promote the channel so that I can stay on here and give you good content. Thank you for joining. Bye for now.